Amina stood at the edge of the bridge, her heart fluttering like the leaves caught in the breeze. Below her, the river danced and sparkled under the sun, seeming to mock her turmoil with its effortless grace. She had watched it many times before, a fluid embodiment of freedom, yet today, it felt like a chasm between her hopes and her reality. Each ripple mirrored a whisper in her mind, a reminder of the promises she feared she might never keep. The villagers often spoke of motherhood as a blessing, a joyous path bestowed upon women who stepped into its embrace. Yet here, Amina felt only trepidation. As her fingers grazed the rough stone of the bridge, she recalled the tales shared among mothers, drenched in laughter but laced with underlying screams of anxiety. She remembered the stories of daughters becoming women, of births celebrated with feasts yet burdened with unspoken expectations. Amina did not resent her mother-in-law, nor the village. What cut deepest was her fear of not being enough, of failing in the very role she longed to dominate. Her belly, round and heavy with life, felt like a weight she could neither bear nor cast off. It swelled with possibilities, yet a void within resonated louder, echoing doubts that choked her spirit. Each time she felt the gentle stir of her child, joy flickered momentarily, yet the overwhelming swell of responsibility threatened to drown her. How could she teach her child the ways of the world when she herself felt so lost? Would she be able to guide them past the river of challenges that lay ahead? Or would she unwittingly lead them into dangerous waters? There, suspended between earth and sky, Amina envisioned what it might mean to release her burden, witnessing her child float away, free of the chains binding them. A fleeting thought brushed against her heart like the caress of the river's current. What is freedom? She pondered. The essence of it twinkled like the sun on water, but felt untouchable in the confines of her reality. It haunted her, this longing to be liberated from expectations, yet tethered by love. The villagers would never understand. They would see only the act, the sharp gasp of shock. They wouldn't feel the weightless release she so desperately desired. It was not an abandonment, but a silent prayer for fortitude, a wish that her child might swim beyond the weight of the world. Yet each heartbeat reminded her of her connection, a bond that tied her to her child more tightly than the simple act of giving birth. Amina closed her eyes, and in that moment of stillness, the tumult of her thoughts fell silent. She allowed the river's song to fill her mind, a promise of renewal, of second chances. The weight of the world might be pressing down, but perhaps, like the river, there was a way to flow around it, to bend without breaking, to love fiercely without losing herself. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that intertwined with the unkempt grass by the bridge. Amina leaned against the weathered wooden railing, her mind an intricate web of conflicting emotions. This space was both a sanctuary and a battlefield, the gentle lapping of the water below taunting her with its promise of stillness. Life seemed to pulse a beat that was at odds with her own frenetic heart. The days were filled with well-meaning visits from friends and family, their voices layered with glee. But what she heard was the undercurrent of expectation, a chorus of what she should be doing rather than what she felt. She remembered how in the early days of her pregnancy, the whispers had come cloaked in enthusiasm. "You must eat well," they would say, as if the pieces of advice were laced with power, capable of ensuring a perfect outcome. It was simple advice at first, but as the weeks rolled into one another, the weight of it grew like the baby inside her. She could still hear the echo of her aunt's voice from last week's visit. "What will you do if he doesn't take to your breast? It's your duty to nurture him in every way." The sheer gravity of responsibility settled in her stomach like a stone, heavier each time she relived those words. She had expected motherhood to be filled with magical moments, dreams of giggles and coos that danced in her imagination. Instead, blanketed by fear, her dreams transformed into restless nights spent tossing and turning, surrendering to nightmares. Images of inadequacy plagued her, mothers cradling their babies, effortlessly, their faces glowing with the love and ease she now thought of as foreign. The more she tried to fit into the mold created by the village, the more she found herself suffocated, gasping for air in a world that felt increasingly hostile. As she stared into the swirling water, its reflection a dance of light and dark, she thought of the love that should have filled her heart, the love she had always anticipated would overshadow her fears. Yet, that love felt like a weight that threatened to drag her under. She envisioned her baby, the tiny being growing inside her, and for a fleeting moment, her heart surged with warmth. But then doubt would creep in, a whisper that lingered in the back of her mind. What if you fail him? The thought sat with her like a relentless shadow, inching closer as the days crept by. Amina's hands tightened around the railing, her knuckles whitening. The village had painted her life into a corner, forcing her to wear masks she had not chosen. It was an unbearable pressure pressing down on her, reshaping every moment. She turned her eyes to the horizon, searching for clarity in the chaos. Instead, all she found was the cold realization that beneath the sheer weight of expectation lay an undeniable truth. She was losing her sense of self. Her identity had been consumed by the role she was expected to fill, and in doing so, she felt as if she were disappearing. Tears brimmed at the corners of her eyes as the water whispered promises of freedom, tempting her with an escape from the tumult within. Yet even as the urge flickered like a flame within her chest, a single thought held her in place. Would it be her choice to make, or merely another echo of what the world expected of her? Amina stood at the window, cradling her newborn against her chest, the fragile creature wrapped in a blanket of soft hues and innocence. The dawn light filtered through the curtains, casting a gentle glow on the tiny features of her daughter. With every delicate breath the child took, Amina felt a tug at her heart, an overwhelming blend of love and trepidation. Today, she wouldn't just be a mother in name. Today, she would grapple with the weight of what that truly meant in a world that felt both promising and perilous. As the hours passed, Amina found solace in the quiet moments, her thoughts drifting like the clouds outside. She traced the outline of her daughter's fingers, marveling at their tiny perfection, yet a whisper of dread gnawed at her insides. What if she fell short? What if the legacy of doubt, which had shadowed her own upbringing, would loom over this innocent life? Each cooing sound emitted from the crib echoed a question within her. Was she equipped to nurture the hopes and dreams she envisioned for her child? The reality of motherhood was insistent, tugging at the edges of her consciousness. The cries of her baby were both a balm and a chain, an affirmation of life that felt heavy with responsibility. She thought of the stories she had heard of mothers who thrived, their confidence unshakable, whose instincts flowed like an untamed river. But Amina felt more like a solitary boat, adrift in unknown waters, battling the current. Could she ever be that steady captain of her family, navigating with grace and assurance? With her mind racing, she turned to the bridge, its strong arches a stark contrast to her inner turmoil. It was as if the structure taunted her, a reminder of the firm choices she had yet to make. Down below, the river continued its ceaseless flow, twisting and turning around rocks and bends, resilient and relentless. Amina longed for that strength, that ability to face whatever life threw her way. Yet every wave seemed to whisper doubts in her ear, reminding her of the fragility of hope. Even in the serene moments when her child finally drifted to sleep, Amina felt the heaviness settle like fog upon her heart. She wanted to be the mother who celebrated every milestone, who cheered on her child in the face of adversity. Yet lurking beneath the surface, the fear of inadequacy threatened to engulf her. Every tiny twitch of the baby's face during sleep every soft sigh, felt like an unspoken demand for perfection. How could someone so pure ever be expected to weather the storms of life? Amina's gaze returned to the waters below, contemplating its deep currents. Was it reckless to imagine a future, or was it an essential voyage for growth? The mirror of the river reflected not just her external world, but the labyrinth of emotions swirling within. As she stared into the depths, she realized that motherhood was not merely a linear path paved with clarity. It was an intricate dance, one that required her to embrace uncertainty and learn to swim among the waves rather than fight against them. Amina stood on the bridge, her gaze focused on the turbulent waters below. The river roared with an intensity that mirrored the chaos within her heart. Time seemed suspended in that moment, the world around her fading into a blur as she battled with her thoughts. The infant in her arms stirred slightly, a gentle reminder of the life she was nurturing, yet she felt the weight of the world pressing down upon her. The laughter and chatter of children playing on the riverbank pierced through her reverie. Each sound was a jagged reminder of what she longed for, a simple life unfettered by the judgments and expectations suffocating her spirit. She closed her eyes, attempting to block out the images of disapproving faces and whispers that slithered through the community like a dark shadow. Amina's heart ached for her husband's support, for the love they once shared. But with each passing day, it felt as though he was being pulled further into the quagmire of societal norms that ruled their lives. His silence weighed heavily on her, an unspoken betrayal that left her feeling adrift. The trust that once bound them began to fray at the edges. Amina often found herself replaying old conversations, moments filled with laughter and dreams of a family unbothered by societal expectations. Now, those dreams felt more like distant memories, overshadowed by a relentless tide of despair. The pressure to conform gnawed at her, threatening to erode the fragile bond she shared with her newborn. What kind of mother would she be if she allowed herself to fall apart? She was fighting a battle on all fronts, and the thought of failing her child pushed her to the edge of her sanity. As the wind rustled through the trees, Amina took a shaky breath, her heart pounding in her chest. This bridge, where she had stood countless times, had transformed from a refuge into a battleground. It was a place of contemplation, yet within its confines lurked her darkest thoughts. She envisioned the river's depths as a release, a final escape from the pain that threatened to engulf her. In those moments, she was tempted to surrender, to relinquish her fears and worries to the currents that cradled so many secrets within its depths. But another voice within her fought back, fiercely protective. She thought of her child, with innocent eyes that mirrored her own. This little being deserved a mother who would rise above the fray, one who would fight not just for survival, but for a life filled with love. Amina's resolve wavered, yet amid the turmoil, a spark ignited deep within her, a determination to reclaim her voice and reshape her destiny. In that moment of reckoning, clarity descended upon her. The river, with all its chaos, became a metaphor for her struggle, a constant ebb and flow that she must navigate with strength. Amina embraced her fears, recognizing that while she stood at the precipice of despair, she also had the power to turn toward hope. Each step away from the bridge would be a step toward resilience, a commitment to redefine her narrative, not just for herself, but for the life she held in her arms. The brisk air carried the faint scent of damp earth as Amina leaned over the edge of the bridge, her heart heavy with the weight of an unspoken truth. Below her, the river danced defiantly against the rocky arms of the shore, its currents swirling with the secrets of countless souls who had whispered their sorrows into its depths. The waters churned with an aching vitality that both entranced and terrified her. Amina could almost hear the gentle beckoning of the river, whispering promises of release that echoed the turmoil within her. In the mornings, when the sun spilled golden light onto the surface of the water, her thoughts were less tumultuous, replaced instead by fleeting visions of her daughter's laughter, light as the airy mist rising from the river. Yet, as dusk approached, shadows crept in, thickening the air around her with melancholy. In those twilight hours, shadows morphed her love for her child, twisting it into a confession of guilt, a question of worth. She felt like a tree stripped bare, tangled in despair, desperately holding on to the tiny leaves of hope that clung to her branches. What kind of mother was she if the weight of her own despair threatened to drown her spirit? The thought coiled around her, constricting tighter with every passing moment, whispering that perhaps her freedom could be birthed from surrender. She envisioned surrender not as an act of cowardice, but as a paradoxical gift, a release of her struggles and expectations, a way to set her daughter free from the constraints of a mother held hostage by her own unfulfilled dreams. She pictured the river's depths, dark and unfathomable, as a womb of possibilities, cradling her pain in its aqueous embrace. What if, in letting go, she could give her daughter the life she had never managed to carve out for herself? Amina's vision turned unsteady, a swirl of vibrant colors blending and bleeding into one another like the leaves swirling in autumn. Chaos danced at the periphery of her thoughts, daring her to step closer to the edge, to collapse into the freedom that awaited her within the depths of the river. But as she stared deeper into the abyss, something flickered within her, a reminder of the small fingers entwined with hers, of the startled laughter that would erupt over the simplest joys. This was not merely a choice of existing or ceasing, it was a reckoning she felt ill-prepared for. The weight of expectation felt ironic, for she had always believed in love as a refuge, yet here it became a chain, anchoring her to a life filled with suffocating obligations. Amina closed her eyes for just a moment, taking a deep, shuddering breath. The churning waters below continued their relentless dance. They sang not only of sorrow, but also of rebirth, of a journey begun anew. In that symphony, she sensed resilience taking root, a decision that perhaps love meant finding the courage to face life's tumult, not to escape it. With a trembling heart, Amina stepped back from the edge, clinging to the flicker of hope growing within, as she realized she could still weave strength from her despair, crafting a tapestry that could cradle both her own burdens and her daughter's dreams. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow that mingled with the twilight shadows enveloping the bridge. Amina stood there, her heart a crescendo of emotions swirling within her like leaves caught in a gust of wind. Each day on this bridge felt like a pilgrimage of sorts, an escape from her cluttered mind, yet a reminder of the responsibilities that clung to her like ivy. She peered into the distance, seeking clarity amidst the chaos of her thoughts as she struggled to reconcile love with her paralyzing fears. She remembered the first time she held her child. The delicate weight cradled in her arms had made time stand still. That moment ignited a flame of fierce love, transforming her life's purpose with a single heartbeat. Yet love was not the sole companion on this journey. Fear crept alongside, whispering insidious doubts that gnawed at her with relentless precision. What if something happened to her child? What if her inadequacies as a parent eventually led to unavoidable pain? The nagging thoughts coiled around her mind like a serpent, suffocating her resolve. And yet, standing on that bridge, she felt the gentle tug of maternal instinct override the clamor of despair. Memories washed over her, moments of laughter shared in sunlit parks, the softness of her child's giggle echoing through their small home. It was as if each remnant of joy sparkled brightly against the dull backdrop of her fears, a vivid reminder that life was not just a battleground of suffering, but a canvas painted with love's strokes. These memories flickered with promise, asserting themselves as a guiding star amidst the encroaching shadows of her anxiety. Amina took a deep breath, the cool air filling her lungs, urging her to embrace her imperfections. She thought of the time she lost her temper, a rare incident, yet one that haunted her, a stark reminder that even a mother could falter. But with that memory came the realization that moments of rage or disappointment were not the summation of her identity. They were merely chapters in a story still in progress. In that recognition, she found a flicker of hope. No one was perfect, and perhaps that imperfection was where true beauty resided. Her child, she reflected, didn't need a flawless mother. They needed one who fought through the darkness, who stood resilient on the bridge each day. In that understanding lay a path toward acceptance, a way to navigate the labyrinth of motherhood. As the last rays of sun dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a tapestry of stars, Amina understood that her journey did not have to be solitary. She could lean into her own vulnerability, drawing strength from it rather than allowing it to define her. With newfound resolve, she envisioned her child's future, a life rich with love, challenges, and the promise of growth. In choosing to embrace her flaws, Amina carved out a sanctuary for herself and her child, where fear no longer dictated their journey, but love illuminated their way. And as she finally turned away from the bridge, she felt lighter, imbued with the quiet strength birthed from her internal struggle, a gentle testament to the fierce and unyielding love she carried in her heart. Amina stood silently by the river, her heart still fluttering with the echoes of the old woman's words. The sun dripped low on the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the water, and for the first time in years, Amina felt a flicker of hope. The cool breeze carried with it a sweet-scented reminder of blossoms long forgotten, intermingling with her swirling thoughts, each whisper urging her to listen closely, to awaken her dormant dreams. As she turned her gaze to the water, Amina began reflecting on the tales of resilience the old woman had spun with such grace. Stories of mothers before her, unyielding, fierce, and full of heart, who faced their own tempests. One tale lingered particularly in Amina's mind, a mother who, against booming thunder and torrential rain, trekked across rugged mountains to find food and shelter for her children. It was a silent storm within her, a tenacity that pushed her forward, even when the world seemed determined to hold her back. Amina could see her own reflection in that mother, caught between a desire for more and a suffocating obligation to remain tethered to the familiar. With every wave that lapped gently at the riverbank, Amina felt her pulse align with the rhythm of possibility. She traced her fingers over her daughter's drawing that rested in her pocket. A colorful playground filled with laughter and adventure, vibrant and alive. The sight of it filled her with a potent mix of nostalgia and yearning, urging her to reclaim those dreams for both of them. Amina had thought motherhood meant sacrificing her own aspirations for her child's success, but could it instead be a shared journey? Fear has held you long enough. The old woman's words echoed in her ears, sound like ripples stretching across the surface of her mind. Amina understood now that to rise was not solely to push against her fears, but an invitation to embrace them. The fear of failure, of inadequacy, had shackled her, but she could let it lead her to the freedom of exploration instead. What could she teach her daughter if she dared to step into the unknown? As the sun made its descent, spilling sanguine colors across the sky, Amina felt a burgeoning sense of solidarity with generations of women who held their heads high against life's overwhelming odds. She envisioned herself standing alongside them, claiming her rightful place in the world of storytelling, not just as a listener, but as a narrating force, weaving her own tale filled with ambition, creativity, and confidence. Imbued with purpose, Amina whispered a promise to the river, to herself, and to her daughter, that she would nurture the sparks of dreams she had buried deep within. Each step she would take from this moment on would echo that promise, crafting a future of hope and resolve. With renewed spirit, Amina turned to head back home, the last rays of sunlight embracing her. The struggles ahead would not be in vain, but rather transforming pathways, illuminating her journey toward the love she sought to embrace. A love that blossomed from knowing herself, fully, fearlessly, and wholly. As she left the river behind, the tide indeed had turned, stirring within Amina the winds of change, guiding her towards uncharted territories of her heart. With her heart open to change, Amina found herself naturally gravitating towards local community centers and groups designed for mothers like her. Each meeting was a revelation, a space where vulnerability was met with empathy, where the weight of societal expectations seemed to melt away, leaving pure, unadulterated connection in its place. As she entered these gatherings, she felt the familiar pang of apprehension fade, replaced with the warmth of solidarity. During one particular meeting, a fellow mother named Lila spoke of the nights spent awake, battling her own doubts and insecurities, recounting a story that resonated deeply within Amina. The laughter of children played lightly in the background, a haunting reminder of the innocence that colored their lives. Yet as Lila spoke of her journey with authenticity and grace, Amina couldn't help but smile, finally realizing that her own story wasn't isolated, but woven into the fabric of shared experiences that bound these women together. They gathered not just to share the weight of motherhood's challenges, but also to celebrate victories, no matter how small they seemed. One mother championed a homemade project that ignited her creativity. Another recounted the joy of finally taking time for herself amidst the chaos of daily routines. As they swapped tales, Amina began to see motherhood through a different lens, not as a series of demands and expectations, but as an ongoing narrative filled with laughter, trial, and personal growth. Walking along the bridge that connected her to this community, Amina felt the waters below resonate with a power she had never acknowledged. Instead of raging torrents, they flowed with purpose, symbolizing her endurance. The surfaces may be rough at times, crashing against rocks, but the currents remained strong and steady. Just as the waters navigated through challenges, so could she. Each step on the bridge became a reminder that shared experience fostered hope, serving as reassurance that none had to navigate this journey alone. Amina noticed that the sunlight glimmered differently from this vantage point. It painted her daughter's future with colors of possibility and hope. She envisioned herself modeling acceptance, teaching her daughter not to fear imperfection, but to embrace it, cultivating an incredible strength that comes only from experiencing life fully, with all its ups and downs. Every laugh shared among the group, every tear shed, and every story told became stepping stones towards a future that shimmered before her like the early morning light. In this newfound clarity, Amina understood love not as confinement, but as an expansive horizon, reaching beyond expectations, filled with acceptance and nurturing spirit. The bridge, once a symbol of her struggles, now stood tall as a testament to resilience and hope, inviting her to walk into the future with confidence, supporting her daughter through the unpredictable currents of life. It was a new dawn, and Amina yearned to share every precious moment of this journey with her evolving family. In the soft glow of a quiet afternoon, Amina and her daughter Lena meandered through the sun-dappled paths of their local park, laughter spilling from them like the petals of wildflowers swaying in the gentle breeze. It was a sanctuary for both of them, a place where the burdens of yesterday could be cast aside, where the rhythm of their heartbeats harmonized with the whispers of nature. Every corner they turned brought with it a new adventure, an opportunity to forge deeper connections. On one particularly enchanting day, they stumbled upon a small pond where frog croaks punctuated the serene atmosphere. Fascinated, Amina watched as Lena knelt at the water's edge, her eyes sparkling with a mix of curiosity and wonder. "Mom, look," she exclaimed, pointing to a cluster of lily pads where a mother duck swam effortlessly with her ducklings in tow. The simple scene struck a chord deep within Amina, who recognized in that moment the profound beauty of nurturing. She leaned down, wrapping her arms around her daughter's shoulders. "See how they stay close together?" she whispered. "Just like us." Through these shared moments, Amina found symbols of resilience woven into the fabric of their everyday lives. Each small triumph, whether it was conquering a fear of the dark or completing a challenging puzzle, became a stone laid firmly on the foundation of their bond. Amina often reminded Lena that it was okay to stumble, to feel like at times the world was too heavy. It was during these moments that they would sit together, fingers entwined, turning sorrow into stories that embraced hardships with gentleness rather than bitterness. School days came with their own set of trials, and Amina ensured that Lena felt equipped to navigate the landscape with grace. When Lena faced challenges with classmates or felt overwhelmed with her studies, Amina was there, unwavering in her support. Together, they would engage in heart-to-heart conversations that spanned the spectrum of emotions, helping Lena articulate her frustrations, dreams, and fears. Amina listened intently, offering wisdom taken from her own journey. Yet she always encouraged Lena to explore her own thoughts, to find her voice amidst the cacophony of adolescence. As seasons changed, so too did their dynamics. They would often experiment in the kitchen, crafting concoctions that sometimes turned out splendidly, and other times, well, not so much. On a particularly ambitious baking day, they attempted a double-layer chocolate cake, enthusiasm bubbling over. As flour clouds filled the air and chocolate dribbled down their faces, they broke into fits of giggles, understanding that it was the process, not perfection, that brought them joy. These moments of hilarity taught them that failure could be delicious, transforming the stumbles along their path into stepping stones. In the tapestry of their lives, Amina recognized that every thread illuminated a lesson: patience, kindness, and above all, the immeasurable power of love. Their bond was fortified with the understanding that life would never be without its challenges, but together they could navigate it all, with laughter and hugs lighting the way. No longer mere survivors of life's unpredictability, they were creators of a shared narrative, a tale of two hearts intertwined, brave enough to embrace both the shadows and the light. Amina sat by the window, the soft light of the evening glowing golden against the walls of their modest home. The shadows stretched, playing across the floor, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. Outside, the world thrummed with life, the evening breeze carrying the laughter of children playing, the distant calls of vendors winding down their day. Her heart swelled as she turned to her daughter, Noor, who was nestled on the couch, her wide eyes reflecting the flicker of the candlelight. It was time for a new story, one that would not just recount events, but breathe life into the lessons Amina had learned on her journey. "Have I ever told you about the river we crossed, the one that was swollen with rain?" Amina began, her voice warm and inviting. Noor shook her head, the curls around her, face bouncing with enthusiasm. "That river was more than just water, my love. It symbolized all the challenges we faced and our determination to forge ahead, no matter the obstacle." As she spoke, she could see the images vividly in her mind: the torrent of water, the landscape transformed into a maze of muddy banks and roaring currents. Their crossing had been fraught with peril, each step a dance with uncertainty. She wanted to convey the weight of that moment, the fear that had threatened to drown them, balanced by the unwavering hold of her husband's hand. "We were afraid, you know," Amina continued, her tone laden with introspection. "But together, we discovered something extraordinary within ourselves. Every heartbeat, every whisper of doubt transformed into resolve. We took one step, then another, until we stood on the other side. She watched as Noor leaned forward, captivated. "What did you learn, Mama?" the girl asked, her innocence a stark contrast to the gravity of Amina's past. "I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to embrace it. In that moment of crossing, I understood that sometimes love requires us to walk into danger, to face our fears head-on." The flickering candlelight mirrored the spark of understanding dawning in Noor's eyes. Amina leaned back, a fond smile playing on her lips. It was in that struggle, those moments of vulnerability, where our love flourished. We discovered trust, not only in each other, but also in ourselves, in the path the universe laid before us. These stories, woven with vulnerability and triumph, were Amina's way of guiding her daughter toward a future of resilience. As Noor settled back against the cushions, her mind racing with visions of the rushing river, Amina seized the moment. "Remember, my dear, the world can seem overwhelmingly vast. It has its share of currents ready to sweep us away. But with love as our anchor, we can navigate through the stormiest of waters." Noor nodded, solemnly, her young mind absorbing the gravity of her mother's words. Outside, the sun dipped lower on the horizon, and Amina gazed out at the last vestiges of light shining upon the river, forever a symbol of their transformative journey, an enduring legacy, rich with lessons of love and courage.